Boy, do I have a special episode for you today. In studio with me is Ryan Hoge, the president of PSA, and he's agreed to answer all of my questions. I'm going to ask him some tough questions about things like card cleaning and upcharges and grading consistency. And we're also going to talk about all of the specials PSA is running, their technological advancements, and lots of big things happening. The future of PSA, what does it look like, and what does it mean to you grading your cards? You're going to find out lots of great information and some breaking news, so let's get started. Ryan, welcome to the Geoff Wilson Show.
Thanks, Geoff. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you here in our studio, and you came into town to check out Cards HQ, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I figured I'm in Atlanta. I need to give you a heads up. I want to see the new shop. It's amazing. Really love what you guys have created here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And of course, knowing that you were coming, I could not let the opportunity go by without having the opportunity to sit down with you and get to ask you some questions.
Yeah, I'm in the hot seat. I'm not sure what to expect, but yeah, I agreed to do it. So,
well, whenever I can tell you in Sports Card Investors channel's history, whenever we do a video about grading, it's always one of our most watched videos. And even here on the Geoff Wilson Show, when I've done episodes about grading, I'll often have Joe Davis from Got Baseball Cards on. They always get, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times the views of our other episodes. People are always obsessed with learning more about grading and understanding the behind the scenes and what that's all about, because it's almost this mysterious process in some ways that affects everybody in the industry, because just about everybody is grading or is buying graded or something like that. And of course, it's also one of those things where nobody ever feels is right, because of course, from the collector mindset, every single one of your cards should always be a 10. Yep. And yet it often doesn't work out that way.
Yep. No, I get it. There's definitely a mysterious element to grading, and hopefully I can pull back the curtain a little bit.
Let's pull back the curtain. All right, good. I've got a bunch of questions for you. So my first is, let's talk about turnaround times.
Sure.
I think this is kind of an interesting topic to start on, how wildly turnaround times have swung over the last couple of years. Where are we right now with turnaround times?
Yeah, so I've been at the company now for 3 years, coming up on 3 years this summer. I joined right after the kind of pause of all the lower price service levels because of the overwhelming demand. I think at the peak we had 13 or 14 million cards in the building in California.
That's quite a time to start, by the way.
Yeah. It was. There was a little bit of dread when I walked in the building that first day, and I was like, "What did I get myself into?" But no, since that time, the team's done an amazing job, kind of digging out from that backlog, and we've done it through a combination of just great people, great talent, bringing on more graders, expanding our physical footprint through real estate. We opened a grading location in New Jersey. We opened one in Tokyo. And we've invested a lot in technology as well to improve the process. So on the turnaround time question, I think what you're really getting at is our cheapest tiers, our lowest price service levels, how fast are those turning around? So at the beginning of the year, February 1st, we announced faster turnaround times. We're at 45 business days is the estimated turnaround for the bulk tiers. And then when we do some of these popular specials that we run periodically, typically those bulk specials we're advertising right around 50 business days. We've been overperforming in a lot of cases. And I think, customers have noticed sometimes we'll ship these things in as little as 20 or 30 business days. It just kind of depends on what the makeup of the order is and how busy, I guess, the team is at any given time.
Yeah. Are you happy with where the turnaround times are now?
I set a goal at the beginning of the year for the team. I wanted every order to be able to ship in less than 30 days, calendar days.
Okay.
And that's
including the bulk orders.
That's a hard goal. Yeah. This is going to be a multi-year thing, but our internal rallying cry, let's try to get there. And that's massive from where we were just 2-3 years ago. We were looking at 6 months, 8 months turnaround. So I would like to get to that point. The two areas where we're still a little bit slower, and people have noticed this, When customers submit for dual service and it has to go through autograph authentication, that's a different department. It's literally in a different part of the building. And it just adding those extra steps to the logistics of it slows it down. It can add 1 to 2, 3 weeks potentially. The other one is on vintage. And so we just have less graders on our team that are trained to grade vintage. And so there's a little bit more of a backlog that happens there with that team. We have a larger percentage of our team are trained on modern and TCG. And so those are the orders that are typically able to fly through much faster.
See, I was wondering if you actually wanted orders to go that quickly, because it would seem to me that if the bulk stuff gets too quick, if it gets under 30 days, then in some ways you disincentivize people from picking a higher tier simply to get a faster turnaround time. Now, sometimes you have to pick a higher tier because of value.
Right.
But sometimes people pick it even on a lower value card just because they want it back quicker.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing that we want is to provide more liquidity to customers. So the faster we can get them their cards back, the faster they're able to sell those cards and then potentially go submit more raw cards to us for grading and kind of keep that cycle going. So I view it as a positive thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. There was a lot of cards, obviously, when there were the huge grading backlogs that you guys had, that the other grading companies had too. There were a lot of cards that were kind of locked up, and therefore a lot of liquidity that was off for a long period of time. But you're right. People who are doing this, especially people who are flipping, dealers, that kind of thing, be able to get the cards back quickly, sell them, be able to move that money into the next card, send that back off for grading. It creates a nice cycle, which really boosts every aspect of the card market.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way that we're viewing it. We know the role that we play in the overall ecosystem, and we want to, be as efficient and as reliable as we can.
So March was one of the busiest, maybe the busiest month in PSA's history in terms of the number of cards graded. I think the number that GemRate put out was over 1.3 million for the month of March. That is a massive number. Are you at all surprised that the number of items being submitted is that big, bigger than it's ever been before, even in the face of, the value of a lot of cards coming down over the last couple of years?
I don't want to say I'm surprised. It does amaze me, though. It amazes me at how large the industry and the hobby has gotten. I think what that's an indicator of, it's one, it shows the capacity that we have, that we can process these things, we can get them back to customers faster, to the earlier point, and they're able to sell them and then submit again. And so that's through our extra capacity in California and the other 2 grading locations. But the other one is, I think we've seen, hundreds of thousands of new customers come into the fold over the last 3-4 years. Some have probably churned out and bailed and said, hey, this isn't for me. But a lot have stuck with it. And I think we're seeing it on sports as well as non-sports. And so I'm anticipating that we're going to see consistent growth in numbers like that, going into the future, definitely throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a good sign. That's what I was going to ask. Are these numbers sustainable, or do you think at some point it kind of comes back down again? Are we in a grading bubble? Some have suggested that we're in a grading bubble, although if you look at the last few years of the data, it suggests otherwise, because the trend seems to be going up, not down.
I think the thing that people are valuing a lot about a graded card is it gives them more confidence when they're buying and selling without it being in hand. Yeah. And so with more commerce happening digitally, whether it's in a Facebook group or over Instagram or on eBay or any other marketplace, people want to have confidence that they know what they're getting, and it's in the condition as described on the label, not necessarily trusting what the seller is describing it as. I mean, that's what really led to the first boom with PSA in the 90s. That's when I submitted my first cards to PSA, was in 1999. It was on the back of eBay. Okay. And it was like, hey, I'm buying cards now. Is there some hidden wrinkle going down the middle of that 87 Fleer Jordan, which is a real case? I bought a raw 87 Fleer Jordan on eBay. It described it as mint, looked awesome in the photos, and I get it, and there's a huge crease down the middle that I couldn't see. That's what really turned me on to, hey, maybe there's a better way. Yeah, buying graded cards gives me that assurance. And so, I think those trends, along with things like Fanatics continuing to want to grow the hobby into traditional sports fans and making it more accessible and driving awareness, is just bringing more and more people in. So you look at that confluence of trends, and it bodes well for our business. Yeah, well, it definitely does. It's a good thing for sure. I want to talk about pricing a little bit. I've noticed PSA, it feels like you guys have gotten more aggressive with pricing specials.
It maybe started last year. We started seeing more and more of them. A lot of them for Collectors Club members, where you're coming out and running specific specials. You've got multiple promotions going on right now. Yep. What is the thinking behind doing, kind of leaning into the special promotions a little more heavily?
Yeah, there's two main things there. The first is customers really love these specials. And we try to make sure when we're putting together our promotion calendar that it is timed in a way so that it aligns either with maybe seasons just getting started or new product releases, or covering a certain segment of collectors, like the vintage collectors. We just ran a special last month that was 1960 to 1979 tops. It was really targeted more at kind of the set builders. It was kind of a lower DV cap, but we wanted to have a lower price special to make it possible for them to kind of fill gaps in their sets. The other thing, though, that we found that the specials work really well for us is controlling volume coming in so that we don't get buried. It allows us to kind of turn the dial temporarily and then turn it back off, so that if we get a ton of cards coming in, like for example, we had a pretty broad appeal special in January. We got almost 1 million cards submitted just under the one special. We did not run that again for the next few months. And that allowed us to kind of catch up. And when you see some of the output numbers, a lot of that were tied to those units of the January sports special that we ran. So those are the two main things. We want to make sure that we're covering all of our customer segments, that we have something that appeals to them at least a few times throughout the year, that they're getting value behind that membership. And then also making sure that we're not overwhelming ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of the membership, so a lot of these specials are tied in to being a member of the Collectors Club, which is kind of your recurring revenue model, right? Your annual recurring revenue model. People join the club and then they get access to discounts and also benefits. You've raised the price of Collectors Club recently. You've also increased some of the benefits. Why? What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah. We had not done a price adjustment in several years. Late last year, we introduced a kind of a higher premium tier of the membership at a $199 price point, but we had kept the base level at $99. It had been at that level for many years, while, as you mentioned, we kept adding additional value to the subscription. So what we felt like doing the $50 price increase for that tier was appropriate given the additional value that we're giving to collectors. So things that we've invested in. I know not everybody cares about breaking credits, but we've added additional breaking partners. So Fanatics Live was announced to be participating by giving away free breaking credits to members in addition to Loop. So you have 2 different partners you can work with. We have completely overhauled the PSA magazine. We're using a higher quality printer. We're doing limited edition print runs that are serial numbered. We've seen some of these selling on eBay for north of $400, some of the limited edition PSA magazines. We introduced a TCG and pop culture specific magazine. And there's additional costs in production that goes behind those that we think is adding real value in something meaningful and interesting for the collectors. And on top of that, we've continued to invest in a lot of the technology platforms and mobile apps. And when we look at the ROI that a customer is getting from being a member, they're able to submit at the bulk tiers and the special tiers. Pretty much it's value and up. So the lowest price point that you're able to submit under is $25. When you become a member, the bulk pricing is at $18.99 for sports, $14.99 for TCG, and then we've run specials as low as $13.99. So those savings that you're able to get happen typically in your first submission. Anyway, so that's where we felt okay about doing the price adjustment. It never is a good message to say, hey, the price of this thing went up, but we felt like the value really was there, that customers would still really appreciate it and keep being members to get access to all those benefits.
And one of those benefits you mentioned was the break credit on Fanatics Live. That caught a lot of people's attention. I think it was maybe the first, at least public partnership that PSA and Fanatics formed together. Obviously 2 of the titans in the industry right now, especially with how, with where everything is headed. Do you expect more partnership with Fanatics in the future?
Yeah, I think so. We have a good working relationship with Fanatics. Inside of Fanatics Collectibles, there's lots of different teams. And so we collaborate on things, whether it's kind of anti-fraud or counterfeit related things with more on the production side, like on the top side of the house. Obviously the partnership that we announced on Fanatics Live to do more of kind of a marketplace breaking benefit for Collectors Club members. Yeah, we talk all the time. I would expect to see continued partnership and collaboration in the years to come.
This would be, I'm going to give a personal anecdote now.
Sure.
If you can get Fanatics, if you can work with them in Topps to standardize the naming structure of cards, particularly parallels, that would be so fantastic. I have to imagine one of the biggest challenges that you have at PSA is when new sets are released from any manufacturer, fully understanding the checklist,
yep,
and then being able to train your team on the difference between a orange wave and a, you know, orange shimmer yeah, and an orange ice,
yeah,
and it, you know, and sometimes the yellows and the golds and the oranges all look very, very similar, and there's tiny little variants.
This is an exact topic that we have talked to the Fanatics team about.
Okay.
Because right now we have a research team, a fairly large research team, and oftentimes they'll end up hand keying in different checklists.
Yeah.
And then when we start seeing the cards come through, we'll recognize the variations, and then we scan every card pre and post grading. So we'll start to build up our image library of those, and we can start recognizing them as they come in. One of the things that we've talked to some of the Topps folks about is, hey, sharing a full checklist with us would be awesome. Even better would be giving us representative images of the cards to automatically help us with detection, and or giving us images of some of the higher value cards that maybe have a unique patch so that we know what the original one looked like coming from the factory with a certain serial number.
That would be huge, because that's been a challenge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a challenge, and especially as the grading company, if you don't know what to look for because you haven't seen the card before and there's no image from the manufacturer, I imagine that's got to be a challenge. You brought up patches. That's been, I know, a challenge at times when people are doing nefarious things, and not just people doing nefarious things, but the different parallels. And I know from personal experience that a lot of times the manufacturers often are slow and incomplete and even producing these checklists.
Yeah, well, and things change. I think they go up to the last minute.
Yeah.
I think that's another one, especially with some of the autographs.
Yeah.
Like, is this player going to sign and get in this product or not? So a lot of it goes right to the wire. But it's definitely an area that I think it would be great to collaborate on more. And then, yeah, like you said, I think even standardizing a little bit of the naming and data structure is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited that you're having that conversation with them. I want to stick on the pricing topic that we were on with a couple of final questions on that. One is upcharges.
Yep.
So upcharges is something that is maybe not the most popular thing, to put it nicely, with a lot of collectors. Now, there's good and bad to it. You know, obviously, if you're submitting a card and you're getting upcharged, then that typically means you got a good grade, and the card coming back to you is a lot more valuable than it was when you submitted it to begin with. But it also means you're going to pay more money.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people that say, why is this necessary? Why should I get charged more based upon the value of the card versus there just being a universal grading fee no matter what card it is? Why do upcharges exist?
Yeah, I'll try to answer this as succinctly as I can. So our business model, PSA's business model on the service tiers has primarily been, since the beginning, differentiated around both turnaround time and value of the item. And the reason we have it set up that way, we offer something called the PSA Grade Guarantee. A lot of people don't know about this. This is unique in the hobby, unique among the grading companies, where we will stand behind the cards that we grade. So if we make a mistake, and we do make mistakes, because every single month I'm having to approve payments to either the submitters or the owners of these cards, where either we overgraded something because we missed a flaw, or it turns out it was a fake card, and we learn years later that, hey, this was a counterfeit or something that we didn't know at the time. We stand behind these, and we actually will back it up with real money and cut checks to people. And so part of that is we are creating additional value for the collector, for the customer, with our services, and we're backing that with this sort of insurance type policy. That's the primary reason that we offer this, and it's unique in the hobby. And we think it's worth it, especially when you look at the secondary prices realized for PSA graded items relative to others. I think other collectors feel the same way.
So the upcharge essentially it essentially pays for the insurance.
I mean, that is absolutely part of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I understand that. Not always going to be the most popular thing, but
Yeah.
I get the reasoning behind it.
Yep.
Do you anticipate any changes to any of the service levels in the future? Whether it be pricing or tiers or upcharges or anything of that nature?
We just rolled out February 1st. We rolled out some refresh pricing for the year. I already talked about the faster turnaround times on the kind of the lower end tiers, and then we actually discounted Express and higher anywhere between 14 and 20%. We kind of took the prices down. Looking ahead, I think we'll do minor price adjustments, year to year, but I don't anticipate anything radical.
Okay.
Changing.
So the levels tend to work, you
Yes,
think, based
yeah.
on where things are right now.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think we like leveraging kind of the promotions and specials calendar
Right.
as a way to augment, the pricing levels that we have versus just making permanent changes to the everyday pricing.
Right. Okay. I asked you a tough question about one thing that some collectors don't like in upcharges. I'll ask you one more tough question.
Yeah.
This one about grading consistency.
Mm-hmm.
The grading consistency is always a pain point with collectors for every grading
Yeah.
company. This isn't PSA specific, but it seems like every collector feels like every card, they of course want to see a 10 on every card they submit. But I think more importantly, they want to believe that if they were to submit a card and it were to get a grade, and then if they were to later resubmit that exact same card, that it would get the exact same grade. We all know that humans are involved in the grading
Yep.
process. And in the case of PSA, you guys are grading 1.3 plus million cards. That means a lot of different humans are part of the grading process. How do you try to keep consistency across that many people that must be involved to actually have it consistent where a PSA 8 is a PSA 8 is a PSA 8 across, all these different cards that are coming in?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you scale as much as we have the last 4 years. Some things that we've done to try to maintain consistency. We have what we call Grader University. And so we have a training program that all new graders go through. Existing graders also can go through it if they want to learn about different categories of cards. So we're investing a lot in internal education and training. There is almost like a probationary period for new graders too. They don't immediately go out and start grading customers' cards week one. It's several months of being an apprentice effectively and having their grades almost double checked by a senior grader. That's on top of our already having multiple graders look at a card. Before your cards go back to you, they've at least been seen by 2 graders. Sometimes they've been seen by 3 graders. That happens typically at the QA checks. So when people see in their orders at QA, there is a senior grader that's doing a QA check with the card in the holder, and sometimes grades will change at that point. Another thing that we're really focused on is we can actually measure grader output and look at their kind of performance by an individual grader across different sets. So we have the data now, so we can measure everything. So we can look to see how grades have changed. Like if we're looking at, say, ultra modern Pokemon that have been released in the last 4 years, we can see what the gem rate is across those sets. And then we can drill by individual grader to see if somebody is being too tight or too loose, where they're falling outside of that standard. And then we can go in further and actually look at some of their cards, since we're imaging everything. And then that could be a motion for additional training, manager talking to them a little bit, giving them some additional guidance and coaching. But this is all new. Like we just got this ability in the last year to be able to measure this because of the investment in the technology.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a thing we're aware of. Reza, who leads our grading team, has monthly all hands with the whole grading staff. He is preaching about consistency in those sessions, reminding everybody. He uses it in his evaluations when he is effectively grading, doing performance reviews on his people. This is a part of it that comes into it. But at the end of the day, we're humans. Mm-hmm. It's people, and we're offering an opinion-based service. And the opinion can change. We do have grading standards, but one grader might view a certain flaw as more detrimental and might, penalize the card an additional grade potentially. But we try to be as consistent as we can.
Do you see a future where some of that human, element to it is maybe taken out of the process, and maybe it's replaced? Obviously, there's been discussion about computer vision and computer grading, and how far along is any of that really at this point?
Yeah, we're already doing some of that. So we have pretty robust grading software that runs our internal operations. So every department has their computer terminals as cards are kind of moving through their journey. In the grader screen in particular, they have their own unique screen because everything's anonymous. They don't see any customer information, but what they can see is the image of the card, kind of the pre-grade image. We have a centering tool, so we're able to measure the actual centering in the borders. We can give them the ratios so that they're not having to take out their rulers and hand calculate it anymore. They still can if they would like to, but we're able to give guidance there. We have counterfeit detection that's built in for hundreds of different cards that are known counterfeits. So we can flag a card if we think it has characteristics of a known counterfeit, so they can take an extra close look, and it's almost like a flag in the grading software, and then a zoom in, say on the basketball on the 86 Fleer Michael Jordan, look to make sure that you can see the lines going through the ball, that it's not solid. Those are examples of some things that we've invested in to make the grading more accurate and faster too, because the grader is able to spend a little bit less time maybe on measuring the centering than they used to before.
Fascinating. Okay, so they are being aided by computers right now.
It is. I would say it's tech assisted grading.
Tech assisted grading.
And I think that's our philosophy going forward, because there is an aspect of eye appeal that it's really hard for a computer to judge.
Yeah.
Because you got to know the other relative versions of it. Like if you're looking at a 52 Willie Mays, and they're typically really off center, and you see one that's just perfectly 50-50 top, bottom, left, right, and the surfaces look great, but there's maybe a real minor corner thing, you might want to give that a half-point grade bump. It's really hard for a computer to determine that eye appeal really stands out relative to the other examples. So that's what I think our philosophy is, and it's going to be for years to come.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I imagine it must be difficult for the computer to pick up on all this potential surface issues as well with some of these refractors. I mean, some of them, I struggle to see, issues. My son will hand me a stack of cards and say, "Dad, should I grade these?" And of course, they're always the shiny ones.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them under different lights. I'm like, man, there might be. Is that a scratch? I don't know if that's a scratch or not.
So here's a pro tip. A lot of people don't realize the kind of environment that our graders work in, and so most of our operation, there's natural light coming through, and people are kind of doing their part, whether it's sealing or shipping or the research team. The graders are in a dark room. And the windows are blacked out. There's no light. Everybody has kind of a little overhead halogen lamp. And when you look at a card in a dark environment with a lamp, and you're able to kind of look at it from some different angles, you see things that you maybe wouldn't see like in a setting like this if you and I were looking at cards. And pay attention to the back too. A lot of people on the new cards miss a flaw that's on the back. Typically it's a surface flaw on the back.
Do you weight the flaws on the back as heavily, or are those weighted a little less?
They can be a little bit less, but when it's a case of like a surface indent, surface indent's a surface indent.
Gotcha.
If it's a refractor line or something like that, and it's on the back or like a minor print line, that could be more forgiving than if it was on the front and like right there. Yeah. Again, up to the grader.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
Dark room for assessing cards.
And a lamp.
Dark room and a halogen lamp.
Yeah.
That's good news. That's really good advice. I appreciate you sharing that with people. Good. So speaking of grading standards, some people feel like PSA has gotten tougher over time, right? Particularly on vintage cards. And I will admit, I am one who has sent in cards from older boxes I've opened, and to me the cards look really good, and then they come back with grades that I found disappointingly low, and I'm like, man, I have seen this card in older PSA holders with a higher grade that looks very, very similar to the one that I just submitted. Have the grading standards changed over time, or is this just people's perception?
The grading standards have not changed. Okay. So that's clear. There has been no guidance, hey, we're gonna change the definition of what a PSA 9 is for an 85 tops. I think what you might see though is sometimes newer graders are a little more conservative, especially if they're looking more at kind of ultra modern glossy cards, and then they have to go to an 80s card that's a different finish. This goes back to my point about we're looking at consistency. We want to be accurate across the board with the distribution. And so if somebody is being too conservative with the grades, they're going to get coached and and spend time kind of looking at different examples so that they can really distinguish, say, what's an 8 versus a 9. Because for these vintage cards, that makes a big difference, especially if you're looking at some of these 80s ones. Really what overrule, like the main characteristics that the graders are looking for is centering and corners. That's the first stuff. If the centering and corners are there, it's going to need to be a surface issue that is going to really take it down a notch. That would be impacting the grade.
PSA's grading submission has gotten some technological upgrades recently. I played around with the new app, for example, and it's the experience of submitting is a lot smoother than before. Tell me about some of those changes, and is there more to come? What might collectors expect in the future?
Yeah, so I'm personally super excited about the tech investments that we've been making. Our product and tech organization has been hard at work on overhauling a lot of legacy technology that was in place 3 years ago and trying to make our services more accessible and approachable, especially to the newer collectors. So I think the mobile app is a great example. It's early. That's why we have it tagged beta. But the idea is for folks that haven't used it, you have the PSA mobile app. You can go to orders. There's a submit button on orders. You can take a photo of a card and we will attempt to match it with our system. Our accuracy is okay. Our speed is not great, but we're continuing to invest in this area. And we will say, yep, it's this specific card. Oftentimes we'll get the variation right. If we don't have the variation right, you can swipe between, a couple different examples and say, oh, that's the one I have. And in some cases, we'll even give you a price estimate. We'll say, hey, the PSA price estimate for this is, $40 to $400 to help kind of inform, is this worth grading? That's really our goal with that feature. There's more features to come on the technology side. One that I'm really excited about that is going to be coming hopefully in June. It's in development now. And it goes back to an earlier question about the grading consistency. We're going to roll out a thing we're calling grader notes. So customers want to know, why did my card that I thought was a 10 get a 7? We are going to show this when you go to my orders and you see your grades. You can click something and it will have a little pop-up that says surface, fingernail indent on back.
Wow. Okay.
We're going to roll this out at the higher service tiers because it does take more time. It'll be express and higher is what we're going to start with. But if it proves popular, we'd like to bring it and have it available at the other service levels.
That's huge. That's going to be a big change.
Yeah, it's
big change.
It's going to be great. And the graders have already been doing this for the last 4 months without us, releasing it to customers yet. Mm-hmm. So they're getting used to using the new tool in the system. But we think it's a step in the right direction as far as just giving a little bit more transparency and education to the customers, because oftentimes they might miss something and they're questioning, why the heck did this get this grade? Yeah. And of course, if it's a 10, we're not going to put any grader notes on there. But if there's a big delta, if it's an ultra modern card and you thought it was going to be a 9 or a 10 and it gets a 5, 6, or a 7, we'll explain why.
Yeah. That's definitely helpful. Yeah. That's going to be appreciated, I think, by a lot of people.
I think it'll be a welcomed feature and hopefully customers like it and we get some good feedback and they can help shape kind of the future direction we go with it.
All right, cool. Well, we're breaking some news here. Exactly. Things to come. I like that. Awesome. So in addition to improving the technology, I've also seen some changes to the slab design recently. It seems like you guys are tinkering with the slab
designs. I saw you cracking one out.
I did crack one out. And then I found an internal case inside of it. I'm like, oh, that's new. Yeah. I haven't seen that before, right? And I know sometimes the slabs, some are coming back a little thicker these days with like a little extra border around the edge, maybe for certain sizes. Tell me about kind of the evolution of the slab. What's happening there?
Yeah, we're going to have more news to share on this in another month or so, but we've been testing some new slabs. They've gone out, I don't want to say testing. We've been rolling them out and they've been in development for 3 years. We just haven't fully replaced all the legacy slabs. The last time the PSA holder, the mainline holder, got redesigned was in 2013. And that's where you had the kind of overlapping parts so that it wasn't just kind of a neat seal that you could put a butter knife in and just separate it. It was a more secure holder. And then in, I believe 2018, the Lighthouse label that is similar to what we have today got introduced. So we have new holders that we've been in development for several years. Customers have started to see them. It's a different plastic. You notice that they're not shattering when you try to crack them open. It's a medical grade plastic, so it's almost got a gummier, heavier feel to it.
It was harder to crack.
Yeah. The benefits to this holder, it offers a level of waterproof. We do water testing. It has better UV protection, and it is keeping the cards more secure, and it can accommodate more internal inserts that we need to better fit some of the cards, both thicker cards as well as smaller cut or die cut cards. That's another thing that we're investing in. We're working on some 3D printing technology to do custom inserts, because a lot of customers will complain that, hey, I've got a die cut card and it kind of looks like it's just floating in the holder.
Yeah, it shifts around sometimes.
So again, leveraging the technology that we have where we're imaging everything, the cards raw when they come in, which, by the way, people always wonder, they'll see the pre-grade images. They'll say, oh, there's scratches on my card. There's not scratches on the card. The cards do not come out of your card saver or semi-rigid until the grader has them. These are probably scratches on top of the case that you sent them in, if anybody's wondering.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they're photographed through the case.
They do not come out of the case.
Okay.
So the way you ship them to us, that's how we're imaging them. But with those images, we're able to do a custom 3D printed insert that will hold the card in place, not have it float around, not use those Mylar baggies that sometimes people will see too.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to move away from all of those things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
But yeah, so you're starting to see some of the holder innovation. We're going to have some more news as we get into the summer, officially kind of introducing these and explaining kind of what went on behind the scenes in the development of them.
When somebody submits a card for like reholdering, which means that you guys have to crack it.
Yep.
Do you have like a specialized machine that cracks? I can't imagine you have somebody with a pair of pliers and a screwdriver doing what I did the other nights. That doesn't seem scalable.
No, we do have a couple specialized machines, but we do crossovers too. And we don't, if somebody's moving something from another grading company's slab, we don't have machines for those. And so, yeah, you end up the same method, I think, comes into play. But when you've done it for hundreds of thousands or millions of cards, you're pretty good at it.
Pretty good at it. Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. That's exciting. Any other changes that might be forthcoming? You've already mentioned a few, obviously. Anything else this year that people might want to expect in terms of news that could be forthcoming? Yeah,
we're going to be announcing something pretty soon. This is more breaking news. You're getting some good stuff here. We're expanding our PSA DNA service level. So that's our autograph division. We also do some game used with bats and gloves where we authenticate those, and we have original photos, type 1 photos as a part of that group. We're adding a new service offering that we're going to be announcing in the coming weeks around photo matching. So PSA is going to get into the photo matching business as an optional service that you can add for items that are coming in for DNA authentication. So if you have an autographed jersey, we can attempt to photo match it as well.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, do you have the image libraries then? Yes. So you'll go through,
Yeah. So we've hired an expert in the space. We've gotten access to all of the image libraries, or at least a lot of the large ones. And then it's really kind of a research journey to go through and see if you can match this thing up to a specific event or not.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great to know that you guys are going to offer that service.
Yeah. So that's going to be really cool when we roll that out, and that should be here in the next month or so.
Okay.
Then we have some other exciting things. Specifically, we have some really exciting things happening later this year with the PSA Vault, which for folks that haven't used it, it's an easy way for you to either get your cards shipped to our secure facility in Delaware. It's a tax-free state. So as a buyer, you get the benefits of not having to pay sales tax by having things shipped there. And then if you're a seller, it's really easy to have your raw cards go right to the PSA Vault as an optional destination, either on a card-by-card basis or the entire order basis. We're investing a lot in new capabilities for that platform that we're also going to be announcing really soon. So I'm excited for the future of the Vault.
Cool. I've got a fair amount of stuff in the Vault, so that will be good to know.
Yeah.
I will look forward to the new capabilities. I want to ask you about card cleaning. Card cleaning has received a lot of attention recently in the sports card hobby, and you came out with a pretty definitive statement on your Twitter account where you said, essentially, we don't support it, we don't permit it. If we find that a foreign substance has been applied to a card, if we detect that, we are going to consider that card to be altered.
Yep.
Was there any discussion around this, or is this just a very black and white issue for PSA?
No, we talked about it. I think we talked about it for sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, really what my statement was is like, we don't know what any of these things do. So if somebody's putting car wax on the surface of their card, what happens to the surface of that card in 10 years? And it's in the PSA holder, and we said it was a PSA 10. And then all of a sudden, all these scratches start appearing. And then somebody comes back to us on the grade guarantee and says, hey, this is not a 10. I want my money. We're on the hook. So we don't have good proof on what happens to these things when you alter them. There are older cards that people have done some like stain removal that I've seen some things shared out there where the stains come back. I don't know how long they stay away, but if those stains reappear, it's like, okay, PSA, you screwed up. So we have a big responsibility here to stand behind what what our assessment is on the product. And, we just don't know what it does. If we all of a sudden got comfortable that, oh yeah, this is fine, it's not going to harm the thing, maybe we would have a different opinion. But we're not there. And then the other nuance with my statement was, if we detect it, sometimes this stuff is hard to detect, but we're working on better ways to detect it. Obviously, some of these things leave a smell. Some of them leave a residue. There's other ways that we're also exploring on how to detect this using other methods that aren't just sight and smell. So,
oh boy. Okay.
All
right.
But that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And so, on the Wembanyama card in particular that everybody, lost their minds over, that one we talked to the dealer who made the statement on the video. That was not the customer. The customer was a different person. And they claimed nothing went on the surface. They used some microfiber on it, and that is totally allowed. And I would even argue, if you're using water or your breath or something like that, that's probably okay. That's not some chemical, that is going to alter this thing. But some of these companies that put products out there that they don't even list the ingredients, you have no idea what that's going to do to a card, 2 years from now, let alone 10 or 20 years from now. And most likely that card's still going to be in that PSA holder 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah.
So
that's a fair point.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. And if you guys are getting better at detecting that too in the future,
yes,
then people now have to worry that they might actually be creating a situation where they're altering their own card as well,
and again, totally fine for people to wipe off fingerprints or dust or things like that. But at the end of the day, when there is a scratch on the surface of a card, if you were going to remove that, you're filling it in with something else. Another chemical is filling the gaps. Like, it's kind of hard to say that's not some level of altering and you don't know what it's going to do. It might look great at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and by the way, graders also have microfiber cloth. So if they're worried about fingerprints getting on the card, the graders also handle the cards and they wipe them off too before it continues on the grading journey.
Okay.
That's always a thing that people wonder about.
Great information.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
SGC was recently acquired by Collectors. So SGC is now, I guess you would call them your brother or sister company, right?
Yeah.
From what was said at the time of the acquisition, SGC is going to continue to operate independently from PSA. You guys are your own companies, but I'm sure there has to be some type of collaboration that might occur or working together in some manner. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah. So Pete and team have been welcomed into the fold. They're doing a great job continuing to run that brand as a separate brand, independent entity. We are collaborating already. The first thing that we started collaborating on was around our brand protection and fraud teams. So we are sharing data around counterfeit cards. We're sharing information on bad actors, maybe that are submitting altered cards. That is being shared across the two companies. I think that's an obvious place to collaborate, is like, let's just have the information flow quickly. We work with the card manufacturers as well. We work with marketplaces as well in that area. And then the second one is we're really leaning in to see if we can help SGC with some of the scale that we have. So whether it's sourcing different suppliers for some of the materials like the holders or the inserts, PSA is operating at a different scale, and so we can get some cost savings potentially there. And then there's other parts in the operation that maybe we've solved some problems at PSA, and it could be something as simple as like, how do you streamline the process of making sure there's no dust and debris on the card before it's sealed. There's some tips and tricks and processes we developed at PSA. I'm sure Pete and team would love to leverage those. And so that's the level of collaboration that we're looking at. But no, we love what Pete and team are doing, and they're going to keep running.
Do you think in the future that something like the Slab, for example, they've got their own completely separate, different slab design? I would think that there would be some economy and scale of scale there, and saying, hey, let's both have the same slab. Maybe we have a different label, but let's both have the same slab instead of trying to do two totally separate, different things. Let's combine it together and have cost savings.
I don't want to say never. I don't know if it's likely though. Pete and I have talked about it. He's working on a redesign of the slab. It's not a major overhaul. He'll share more news when he's ready to share on it. But I think when you look at their black insert, you need a different sized holder to be able to accommodate that and give that aesthetic. So it would make it very hard to shrink that to a PSA sized holder. You would lose that whole element, which is a unique part of what they offer. So unlikely, but I wouldn't say never.
Okay.
Yeah.
PSA recently changed the label of cards that are getting just an auto grade from red to blue. I think it was originally blue.
Yeah, we haven't put it into practice yet, but I announced that we're going to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So at the moment, they're still red.
They're still red. Yeah.
Okay.
I can give the history on this though.
Yeah.
So we offer 2 levels of service at PSA. You can do trading card grading and have the card graded, and then optionally have the autograph graded as well. We also offer encapsulation services for lots of different items that have an autograph, where all we're doing is putting it in a holder, and then we're saying the autograph is real, and we might even grade the autograph. And so this happens sometimes, like let's say an index card or a letter, or just some other random, like a program from some event. And makes a lot of sense to encapsulate those. Easy way to display. Where there's been some challenges is on the trading card side. So up until 2019, PSA offered a blue label that would distinguish autograph authenticated only encapsulated items. And so that would apply to tickets, to checks, to cards. And it was really easy to tell, okay, that's just a PSA DNA thing. In 2019, there was a decision made, and this was way before my time, decision made to standardize everything with the red border. Now, I think that had some good elements at the time. There were different security measures in the red label that were better from an anti-counterfeiting standpoint. It helped with brand recognition as well. But what also got introduced with that, and the timing happened to line up with a lot of new people coming into the hobby that maybe don't know exactly what they're looking for, especially on some of these early purchases. You would see customers buying a card. A good example could be an 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. that is autographed in the gray, and it might say Auto 10, but it's not a PSA 10 of the card. All we're saying is that's a real Ken Griffey Jr. autograph on that card. And there have been some examples that came up recently too, where there was like a 1990 Topps Frank Thomas, no name on front, that it was a clear, counterfeit reprint, not authorized by Topps in any way. And it was signed by Frank Thomas. And when it was encapsulated with a red border, it said trading card Frank Thomas, but people are looking at the card. They're not reading the label. And so we felt like it was a smart decision to go back to the blue label to further distinguish so that the customer knows what they're actually buying. And then we've had further discussions. And what we're actually going to do is we're changing our policy on what gets holdered in our slabs, even with the trading card designation with the blue label. We're not going to encapsulate counterfeit cards, only licensed reprints, real reprints, that's fine. And we're also not going to encapsulate custom cards where people maybe are taking a cut autograph and making it look like a 2003 exquisite or something like that. We just don't think that that's the right move for our customers or for the hobby. So we're changing our policy there.
Okay. I like that. I think that's better for newer people getting into the hobby.
And that's what was motivating this.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. I wanted to talk real quick about TCG because, on this show, we obviously mainly cover sports cards. You've been doing a massive amount of TCG. Does that surprise you? How do you see TCG? How is that business? How do you see that progressing?
TCG is a huge part of our business. In any given month, it could be the largest category that we see, specifically Pokemon. Could be larger than baseball in any given month. Our Japan office over 90% of the units that we're grading out of Japan are TCG. So it's powering that whole business. It really showed up on the scene for us in about 2019 is when we started to see Pokemon cards in particular start coming in at real volume levels. And I think it's just hitting on the same chords that happen with a lot of collectors. The nostalgia element is kicking in for people that grew up in the mid 90s to early 2000s. And they're now kind of in their late 20s, getting into 30s. They have income that they can put towards other pastimes. They're having that nostalgia element. And maybe they didn't collect sports cards in 1999. They collected Charizard. Yeah. And so that's driving a big part of this. Yeah. I know Pokemon is still for kids, and that's really where the new products are targeted. They really want kids learning how to play the game. But I think there's an element of like the kids are playing the game. The parents might also like collecting some of the more noteworthy cards, and then the nostalgia angle where there's some trophy cards where people just want to show them off. So I don't see it slowing down. It's really fueling a lot of the growth in our international operations. We're seeing growth in other categories, like One Piece has now surged to be the number 2 category of TCG that we're seeing this past Yu-Gi-Oh. So.
I imagine Lorcana's on the rise.
Lorcana is rising.
It's been doing well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's here to stay, and it's so important to us that not only did we launch a TCG pop culture focused magazine for Collectors Club members, I actually created a business group called the PSA Pop Culture Team, led by Elizabeth Gruna, and she's got a whole team dedicated to this category and looking after TCG, what we're doing with Funko Pops, what we're doing in the video game space, and other categories that we're considering.
Speaking of those spaces, Funko Pops, video games, anything new that PSA is going to be getting into grading in the future that you can tell us about?
No comment.
Okay. All right. Yes. So something new might be coming.
There might stay tuned.
You've broken enough news on this show. That's okay. We can stay tuned for that.
We are always looking at other interesting categories where we think we can offer a differentiated service offering, and there's overlap with some of our other customers.
Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. We'll see what comes down the pipe. You mentioned the Japan office. Opening there last year. I know that was a big win, especially for the Asian collector community. You opened in New Jersey as well. So now you've got grading on both coasts of the country. What might collectors, if anything, expect to see, especially East Coast collectors? Will there be any changes forthcoming now that you've got grading on the East Coast?
Yeah, so we opened up New Jersey in May of last year, and that team has grown. We probably doubled the size of the team in the last 12 months. They've been fully operational though since May. So we're a year into it. Customers are noticing that they might get orders shipped back to them from New Jersey, yet they can't ship to New Jersey. And that's on purpose. Right now, what we're doing is we're having all customers submit to California. We will do some internal routing occasionally on some orders to then have them fulfilled out of New Jersey. Most of the orders that we're processing there are either TCG or ultramodern focus. That's where the team's really trained on, and that's their expertise. We do have a few larger dealers that will make appointments and do some drop-offs too, but it's not open to retail customers to submit yet. One of the things that we would like to do in the future is have some more intelligence built in to our online submission center on the web and in the mobile app, so that if you're a collector on the East Coast and you happen to be doing a TCG order or a new order of 23 Prism basketball, when you get to the final step of ship your cards, we actually generate a shipping label. That's another new feature coming. We're going to have prepaid shipping labels, leveraging some of our discount
coming in. That'll be
helpful. Yeah. And maybe that address is going to Jersey City and not going to Santa Ana. That's something on the radar, but probably not going to happen this year, but maybe next year we'll get there. And then in Japan, right now the Japan grading operation is only open to Japanese residents. You have to have a return shipping address in Japan to get those cards back. Okay.
All right. You've answered a lot of questions. I appreciate all of it. My final question, Ryan, what are you collecting these days?
Oh boy, what am I collecting? I see cards all day, every day. And so my interest in cards, it's still there. I love them. But I get focused on, I think, some more obscure, interesting sets to me. I still love 1975 Topps. That's my favorite set of all time. I'm pumped for Heritage release this year since it's a throwback to that design. Before we got on camera, I was mentioning to you this set that I actually completed recently. There's a 1949 Bowman set called America Salutes the FBI that's the same size as the 49 Bowman baseball and the 1950 Bowman, little square. My grandfather was an FBI agent for 30 years, and his rookie year was 1949. So I thought this was a super cool set. I was able to piece together a raw set and got the whole thing graded. And now I think I'm number 3 on the set registry.
Neat.
Yeah.
I've never even seen this set. I'm going to have to check it out now.
I had never seen it.
Seen it.
It was super cool. And then I've been buying some game used bats.
Okay.
So that's something that I've found is pretty fun. I picked up a Ken Griffey Jr. 1999 season game used bat with the spiral tape.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, really fun. So.
I just bought a big one on Golden.
Oh,
I
did
bought
you?
the Acuna's 40th home run from his 40-70 season.
Oh, wow.
I actually bought, I haven't even announced this yet, but I bought, they had his cleats.
I saw those.
From his 70s stolen base.
Those.
So I bought those, and then I got the bat from the 40th home run.
Wow.
So I couldn't believe that those were up for auction.
Are those going to be on display here?
Yeah,
in the
I'm
shop?
going to put them on display in the shop.
They've got to be.
I'm going to have to do some type of custom display for the shop with those.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah,
well,
it's
congrats
really
on
neat.
that one.
Yeah,
That's
thank
great.
you. Thank you. That's exciting. But yeah, the game used bats, that's super neat. Griffey, 89 Griffey would be very high on my list of game used bats.
Those are tough.
If I was trying to collect more of those.
Yeah, those are tough.
Yeah.
So the one that I bought, the 99 bat, it was his. It was the year that they put the MLB logo man on it, and it's in Boston silver right next to his silver name. Yeah, it's super cool. Uncracked, a lot of good game use.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
fun.
really neat. Yeah, that's a good year for sure. Awesome. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you coming
Geoff.
on. I think the audience is certainly going to be excited about the transparency and answering all the questions and everything like that. A lot of great information here. Great to get this all out to collectors. So thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And to everybody out there, just a reminder, you can see the full-length episodes of The Geoff Wilson Show. It's its own channel on YouTube. It's under The Geoff Wilson Show on YouTube, but it's also on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you are subscribed everywhere so you can get these shows on the go. Thank you for watching. We'll see you with our next one. Take care.